Tavares and Patches turn back the clock and Jake McCabe gets paid. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf Center podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morisuti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I bet you FanDuel raked in a lot of money today, Dave, because it was the sports equinox. Lots going on around the sporting world today. It's one of the very few days that we get all four major sports ongoing at the same time. You had the World Series. Congrats to the Dodgers, up 3-0 over the Yankees, those stinking Yankees. You got some basketball going on. The Raptors taking the Nuggets to overtime. That was a pretty unexpectedly competitive game. And then obviously you've also got the Maple Leafs in action tonight as the NHL was cooking. And the Leafs with a win. They finally get back into the win column, Dave. A 6-4 win over the Winnipeg Jets. Lots to get into today. Jake McCabe signed a new extension. We'll get into that and maybe what the Maple Leafs will have to do over the next little bit. What's the next course of action for Brad Treliving? So we'll get into all that today. But let's start with a recap of last night's game. Maple Leafs 6-4 win over the Jets. That's now 6 wins in a row for Toronto over Winnipeg. It's exactly what we thought was going to happen, Dave. Talked about it yesterday. Just when the chips are down, just when it's like, oh, now they've got to play the Jets and they're playing like crap. If they do this, they're going to get blown up. They say, no. This is when we play well. That's exactly what happened. They come out, get off to an amazing start to the game. They go up 4-0 early, and then, they let the Jets back into the game, but they were able to close it out and pick up the 2 points and stop the 3-game losing streak.
Yeah, I mean, it was a textbook type of game. I think that Craig Berube has been waiting for this team to play, right? In their face, complete control of the game, right? Simple things, doing the simple things right. And I mean, who would have thought that it would have been the older players to get the team going as well, right? But you really look at why this game went the way for the Leafs. It was a play at 5-on-5, right? The Jets did make it a game, but really the only part of the reason that happened is because the Leafs again got a bit undisciplined and allowed the Jets too many opportunities with the extra man. Obviously, one of the goals was with the delayed penalty. So technically, I think
an extra man, yeah.
3 goals. 5. Yeah, 3 goals that they scored came because they were, the Leafs were shorthanded. And because if you look at the 5-on-5, I was not as concerned about the Leafs, the Jets come back because the Leafs were playing so well at 5-on-5. My thing was if they kept themselves out of the box, if they kept it clean, this game should be in the bag. So, you don't like the fact that the Jets made it a game late, but you have to take a note of everything the Leafs did well at 5-on-5.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't take that away. But, if we are going to pick on the game and it's just something to work on moving forward, this team does need to be more disciplined. Like we talked about it. This group had they're the 7th most penalized team going into the game, and then they took another 4 penalties. Would have been 5, but they actually allowed the goal on the on the power play and waiting. So we could call it 3 for 5, 2 for 4, whatever you want to call it, with the extra man on the ice, I suppose. And that's just something that the Maple Leafs need to figure out, because that's what allowed the Jets to get back into the game. Like the Leafs were rolling. They were up 4-0. It looked like this thing was going to be curtains. They scored another goal early in the second period. It was like, okay, this is Toronto's game. They finally have arrived. This is this is a similar team that we saw when we watched them play against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then they got into the penalty trouble, and it allowed Winnipeg to claw back in, right? Kyle Connor, he's out there. He's shooting pucks, scoring left, right, and center. By the way, I don't know if you saw, but they actually took away the third goal from Kyle Connor and gave it to Gabe Vilardi. So everyone who threw their hat out on the ice, sorry about that. It wasn't a hat trick. Did not need to toss your old raggedy hat out there on the ice. But anyways, but yeah, like you mentioned it really was. It was the old guard, the old guys who kind of turned the clock back a little bit tonight, and they were the best. John Tavares, he does get the hat trick. He gets his first hattie. Yeah, Pacioretty with 3 assists. Nylander played well tonight, and that line was newly formed. Like that was just a line that they kind of threw together yesterday in practice and said, "This is what we're going to roll with, and let's hope that it works. Let's hope that it can provide some offense." And David certainly did. It certainly did do that tonight.
And look at where all the goals were scored. Minus the Tavares empty netter.
Right.
All of them in the dirty areas, in the slot, high danger areas. Like,
yes.
We kind of feel like at times we're beating a dead horse by constantly saying this, but the Leafs' best chance at getting offense is to go into those dirty areas. And they do it with success when they actually do it.
Really quickly, the average goal distance tonight for the Maple Leafs, 14 feet. 14 feet from the net. And that is not what it's been. It's usually hovering in like 25 to 30 to 40 feet when it comes to the Maple Leafs. Like if you look at, just for comparison, I guess I'll have to look up because it wasn't 5-on-5, because I don't think they allowed a goal at 5-on-5, the Maple Leafs tonight. The average goal distance for the Jets was 26 feet tonight. So, that's kind of the difference there. Nearly twice as far out as where Winnipeg was scoring their goals. So just to show you how in the kitchen they were, all 4 goals that they scored also at 5-on-5, or 4 of the 5 goals rather, were high danger goals, as you mentioned, right there. And if you look at the shot map, the heat map, beat red right in front of Connor Hellebuck. So yeah, the Maple Leafs did a really good job going to the net. And I think one of the bigger positives even was they're able to pounce on rebounds. Like we had talked about, this team not getting those second and third opportunities. We saw that tonight, right? Like the first John Tavares goal, right, comes off of a bit of a rebound. The Nyes goal comes off of a rebound from Austin Matthews. And then Tavares again, tip puck in front of the net by Pacioretty, comes back out to the front of the net, and then they're able to pounce on it. So, that's just what they were doing. They're going to the net, going to those dirty areas, and hey, they weren't the pretty goals. You want to call them greasy garbage goals, whatever. They're goals, man. And they start to pile up on the board. You start picking up wins, and that's ultimately what matters. And they did that tonight, and let's hope they can do this more going forward, because that seems to be the way that Berube wants his team to play.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you look at the goals, doing the right things, getting in the right spots, and now is this something that they can continue to do? That to me, I think, is also the question, right? After a game like this,
Yeah, of course.
Can they maintain what they did right in this game? You're not going to get. I don't think you're going to get opportunities like this every week. I mean, hey, maybe we just got to play every game on Prime for the Leafs to do this.
Yeah, apparently that's what it is, right? On Amazon Prime, which did you have the fuzzy feed? Apparently there's 2 different feeds.
So mine is through the app on my TV. I saw you guys in the
mine was on the app too, though, like through my TV, and I got the fuzz. It looked like the alien invasion was happening. It was very annoying. It was the one in the it was like it was twice. There was one in the intermission when Andy Petrillo was interviewing Scott Oak, and it's unfortunate because he was telling a good story about, they had opened up well, from what I was able to hear, they opened up was it a cancer center in honor of his son, and you could barely hear the interview because the sound kept cutting in and out. It sounded literally like dial-up internet. It was ridiculous. And then, like in the second period, midway through, I had the exact same problem. And I think it was fine afterward, but yeah, really bizarre situation with that, where only some broadcasts or some people were getting the fuzz. I was one of them, and some people weren't. I don't really know how that works, but anyway, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get to the good, the bad, or no, the 3 stars. Ugh, we've been doing good, bad, ugly for the last 3 games. It's time for the 3 stars with the Maple
Let's
Leafs.
mix it up. Let's change it up. Let's go.
Yeah. Now, 3 stars coming up on the other side, and Jake McCabe gets paid. What do we think of the deal, and what's next for Brad Treliving on his order of operations? We'll get to that next on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NHL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that gets getting tickets even easier for you for going to your live events. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater events, whatever you're looking to get tickets to. They've got great panoramic seat views right from in the app before you buy, so you know exactly the views you're looking at, and they've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti with you here on the show, as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. You can find us wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube. All right, Dave, Maple Leafs with a 6-4 win over the Winnipeg Jets. That's 6 wins in a row against the Jets, and the first team to knock off Winnipeg this year. They're now 9-1, Dave. They're undefeated going into tonight. No more. The Leafs clearly are the best team in the NHL, because to be the best, you got to beat the best, and they just did that, right? Is that how we're gonna look at this game?
I guess we can roll with it that way if we really want to.
No, Dave, you're supposed to say absolutely not. Did you not witness the last week of what we had to watch? There's no chance.
I'm sorry. What happened? What happened in the last week? I totally blanked that out of my mind.
That's right. What did you do for me lately? 6-4 dub against the team's best team in the league. That's what happened. All right, let's get to the 3 stars, buddy. Who's your first star tonight?
I'm taking a play out of the Mike DiStefano cheat book, and I'm going with the line of Pacioretty, Tavares, and Nylander.
Good
like
call.
You can't pick one. Maybe you could pick Pacioretty if you really want to. You know, first time scoring 4 points in like a really while.
Could pick Tavares too. Guy had a hat trick, but okay.
I mean, I wanted to give some love to Pacioretty because
I know, but you're like, oh, I guess if you had to single one guy out, let's go to the guy who had 3 assists, not the guy who had 3 goals. That's the one you're gonna. I mean, I had Pacioretty as my second star. I had Tavares as my first star, and I had Pacioretty as my second star. But you obviously were like, screw it, we're gonna combine it all, so you didn't have to flip the coin and make the decision. You're a coward.
Exactly.
You're a coward.
Big time.
But they both played absolutely spectacular tonight. Tavares, 3 goals on 7 shots, 16-5 in the faceoff dot too. 16-5. Big night for John Tavares. Kind of turned the clock back, led the entire game with a 1.47 individual expected goals. He was all over the place tonight. I think they outshot to like 12-3, I think it was, when he was on the ice at 5-on-5. So like they played that line as a whole was terrific, as you mentioned. Played basically the entire game on the offensive side of the ice. They really tilted the ice when they were out there. It was a vintage performance from both Tavares and Pacioretty. Oh, Nylander hit the score sheet as well.
Like,
Like,
we forget. Oh yeah, William Nylander was there too.
oh yeah. Willie scored also. I think he had 2 points, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And
Yeah.
when you look at I'll bring up Tavares first because I know that his name has kind of been thrown around a few times the last little bit because he hasn't been playing well. And look, when a guy's getting paid $11 million, he is open to scrutiny, no doubt about it. But we also have to remember that he was really ill, lost a bunch of weight. That doesn't usually. Yeah, he lost. It was that illness that he went through was pretty gnarly. Like when you lose weight from an illness, that takes a lot out of you, and you have to kind of build yourself back up. Now,
how do we get that illness, Dave?
I don't know if that's my preferred way to do that. Personally, I mean, if you want to go down that route, have at it, buddy.
It's called dedication, Dave. Dedication. No, just kidding.
I will say this: the fact that how often would you see Tavares out in a late game situation to hold the lead too? He usually was not for the face off, he'd probably be out there, and then it's like get your butt off the ice after that. Like I think it showed. I mean, from Craig Berube's side, like the trust that he had in Tavares to get that game to seal that game off for the Leafs because they really needed him to.
Yeah, and look, that's what a good coach is able to do, right? When you notice that someone's having a game or someone's kind of turned the clock back and they're having a great night, you throw them out there for those, those shifts, those extra shifts, and see if he can make something happen. And clearly, that was a good time for him to throw him out there, right? Win the face-off and be there. He's also like reliable defensively. It's not like the guy's an absolute gas can in his own end, but he obviously gets the puck along the boards, settles it for half a second, makes sure, all right, I'm going to backhand this, takes a hit, but I'm going to make sure I backhand this into the back of the net and kind of seal the deal. And he did just that. So I gave him my first star, and then I gave Pacioretty the second star because I thought Pacioretty was really good tonight as well. Like Tavares doesn't score those goals if it's not for Patches making the plays that he did to get him the puck or to deflect the puck and create those opportunities. So I guess in unison they both can collectively get a first and second star or the first star in your mind. Who else did you like tonight? Who got your second star?
I mean, I gotta go with the guy who scored another goal tonight, and that is Matthew Knies.
Yeah,
continues to do it, man. And every time he scores, everyone's wondering how much more money are the Leafs gonna have to spend on his next contract.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to have that conversation every time he has a goal, but it's valid.
I don't either. It's just people literally throw that out there every time I see it.
But Dave, how did the goal happen? Right? Like look back at that goal. How did it happen?
I mean, he was in the right place, relentless, shot it, got saved, and he's like, "Oh, you thought I was only going to shoot that puck once?"
Well, even go back 10 more seconds. Like that heavy forecheck forces a turnover,
goes right to the net.
Possession back for the Maple Leafs, and then goes right to the net for the follow-up rebound. Like that's can't get more direct than that, right? Like that's heavy hockey. That's playoff hockey. That's what the Leafs need to do. And look, Nye's been doing it most of the season, I guess. Like that game, there's been a couple games where maybe the team has not played that way, but Matthew Knies has played well. And tonight again, creating goals by playing that heavy style game. Remember, he tacked on 10 pounds this offseason. He's almost I think he's like 230 pounds now. He picked up the weight that Tavares lost apparently, and he's pushing dudes around. He's using that weight very effectively this year.
5 goals in 10 games this year, and he's had 4 in the last 5 games.
Yeah.
That's such an impressive stretch for him. And
Well, I mean,
And
we
like
both kind of called the breakout coming this year. Like we both said, like I think he's going to be a big year. If he's going to be playing with Matthews and with Marner, like there's opportunity for him to produce, and he's making the most of it.
yeah, like I don't think anyone's missing Tyler Bertuzzi right now with the way he's playing.
Not after tonight. A couple of games ago, you might have said, "Oh, where's the Leafs offense? No one's scoring." Could use a guy like Bertuzzi, but yes, obviously he is filling in quite admirably, and will be. I think he'll score more goals than Bertuzzi did last year, but then someone's got to fill in for the other 15 that Nyes had also. Which very well could end up being a guy like Max Pacioretty. Like he didn't hit the score sheet tonight, got 3 apples. But we know that he's a guy who is more likely going to finish with more goals than helpers. It's just the way his career is pretty well gone. We'll see how the other year kind of shakes out. My third star, I gave it to the man who got paid today, Jake McCabe. Thought he was terrific tonight. I thought that he was really, really solid. What was I think he had a 90, led the team with like a 90% expected goals. I want to say, is that what it was? Expected goals for that's the Jets. That's why I'm like, what? The top of the Jets was like 52%. I'm like, that's not where the Leafs were at. Yeah, 90% expected goals. The scoring chances while he was on the ice, 13-4 in favor of the Maple Leafs. He was on the ice for just one high danger chance against. 12-4 were the shots on goal. And he had all but one shift outside of the offensive zone. So like the guy just consistent. So like he's getting those hard shifts, right? It's neutral zone or defensive zone faceoffs. Like he's the one out there playing those hard shifts, but he's doing a great job of killing plays, getting the puck, getting it over Chris Tanev. Him and Tanev are just going to. If this is the pairing, how do you feel about that pairing? Because I mean this. I remember when they made these signings, I remember thinking, I wonder how it's all going to gel, because I thought that the way that the top four is constructed now was a possibility because they could create a super shutdown pairing, right? And now you get that with McCabe on the left side and Tanev on the right. And they looked really, really good tonight. They were excellent.
What I like about it is like when you go up against a team like Boston that clearly you have one line that you really want to try to hold, right? I do like that pairing. I always get worried. Do you put too much of your eggs in one basket in a way with that pairing? But I mean, tonight you watch like the way that they got the Jets try to chip that puck into the zone, dump it in, and it's quickly out of there because that's Tanev's specialty, right? Puck retrieval, getting it out, and even McCabe too, right? And McCabe likes to be a little free, right? He likes to skate. He likes to get involved a little bit offensively, but when he's with let's say like an OEL, he feels like he has to kind of rein it back a little bit. So I do like that. It just shows that McCabe is more than just a defensive guy at times, and we saw it at times last year that he is more than that. So yeah, I do like the way that he's played this year. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about the contract, but I think you keep this pairing together for a bit and just see how it goes. I don't have an issue with it, and I don't. It hasn't had the trickle down effect that I was worried about.
Yeah,
I haven't seen like the other pairings suffer because you're kind of loading all your best defensive guys into one pairing.
Yeah. He had 18 zone face-offs. Like 18 of his shifts were at the start of face-offs, I guess, like zone face-offs. I don't know why I can't figure out like the correct term to use there. How many offensive zone face-offs do you think he was on the ice for? I guess is the best way to answer that question. He had 18 shifts which he started for his own face-off. How many of them do you think were in the offensive end?
Like 3?
0.
Oh.
0 shifts started in the offensive zone. They believe that they know that this is a guy we want to keep him fresh for when we need him in the defensive zone. and he's going to block shots, and he's going to hit dudes, and he's going to make good plays with the stick, kill plays, and then he's got a great first pass to move things up forward. And obviously, him and Jake McCabe look really good tonight. We'll see how long the team is willing to go on with that experiment, because Rielly Tanev made a lot of sense. Been waiting for a Tanev-like partner for Rielly. So, like 9 games in, you take it away from him. We'll see how long this goes, but it looked good tonight for McCabe and Chris Tanev. All right, speaking of Jake McCabe, Dave, let's break. We'll come back, get into the extension. What do we like? What concerns do we have? And then what's next for the Maple Leafs blue line? That's all coming up next on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your guys gets injured or if your player leaves in the first half and does not return. PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues with Mike DiStefano and Dave Morisuti. The Maple Leafs with a 6-4 win over the Winnipeg Jets, but they got a even bigger win earlier in the day, getting an extension done with Jake McCabe. It's a 5-year deal, Dave, worth $4.51 million annually. Real simple question, Dave. What do you make of the deal?
I mean, I like it. You got a guy who's worked out ever since you traded for him. We knew that an extension was likely coming because they've been working towards it. It's been, reported that they've continued to have those talks. I'm sure maybe some people didn't expect it to be 5 years. I mean, when you're trying to assure a guy, long term, and you also want to keep the cap hit down a bit and keep him from reaching the open market, you're gonna add some term to that deal.
Yeah, right. I wasn't that surprised about the 5 years. Like, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and someone said, "Oh, what do you think Jake McCabe comes in at?" And I said, 5 by 5. If I had to guess, like that's probably what the market dictates. Like, if he goes to free agency this year, he's gonna get 5 by 5. Look what Nikita Zadorov just signed for.
Yeah,
like that's just what you're getting, 5-6 million in on the open market. So, he left I don't know if you could say he left a little bit of money on the table. He did get a very nice deal. You can make the argument, I suppose. But 5 years isn't that egregious for someone who's 31. It'd be worse if he were, 33, 34 years old, like Tanev, who signed a 6-year deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the 5 years isn't necessarily what concerns me too much in a vacuum. However, and this may be what you may have been getting to, so I apologize if I cut you off here. It does add to an already aging defensive core that is locked up long term. Yeah. That part, as a big picture, is a little bit, I don't know if it's unsettling, but it's notable for sure.
It is notable because, I mean, we talked about it even going into this year that this is a team that's skewed older. But we mentioned it's mainly because of the blue line, right? Tanev, OEL, and McCabe, all three of them are on the older side.
So I got there. So Tanev, 35, going to be 36 in December. Rielly, 30, going to be 31 in March. Oliver Ekman-Larsson just turned 33. And Jake McCabe just turned 31. So all those players are over 31. And by the end of season, Tanev's going to be 36. He'll be 36 in like 6 weeks. So, yeah.
Yeah, and look, but at the same time, you're a team that's not looking to rebuild anytime soon. You're not a team that's looking to, looking at the end of its contending window. You want to extend that contending window, and the way you do that is you maintain the core that you have. And we also know it's not easy finding quality defensemen. It's been a challenge. The draft, yeah, you can try and draft and develop those blue liners, but that takes time, right? And when you have a guy like a Ben Danford right now, you want to give him that time. So having your blue line already locked up, right, doesn't put the pressure on a guy like him to have to, rush his development, because you eventually are going to need to find solutions for your blue line. You've got your blue line in a way that those guys can come up at their own timeline as well. But it also leads to the question of, there's a lot of money being put on the blue line now, which rightfully so. It needs, you can't just try to, do patchwork on the blue line, but there's a lot of money being paid to the blue line for guys who are playing and not playing.
Well, the not playing part, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Isn't it funny? We spent how many years talking about how this team had all their money up front and never put any money toward the blue line, and now you're out here saying that there's so much money locked into the blue line?
Oh, I'm not really like, yeah, I know, but when they started putting money towards the blue line, we were praising them, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
But it's a necessary thing, because how many times do you hear, oh, you're paying X amount of money to 4 forwards? You're paying two. Now they're paying money.
Thing is, they still are paying those 4 forwards that much, even more money.
Well, but now it's almost like you're paying money on the blue line. Guess what that also means? It also means less of that pie. Like, as Brad Shilling said, there's going to be less of a pie going around for the bigger guys, because now we've got to open it up for the other ones.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens later on with Marner, and I can see Tavares obviously taking a haircut.
Right.
He's clearly going to take a
haircut. I think it's gonna be a little more than a haircut.
Yeah, he might have to go full Messier on that contract. We'll see. Maybe not full Messier, but like Dave Morisuti level haircut on that one. I'm sorry, you didn't have to catch that stray. I apologize. My apologies on that one.
You know what, John? Don't even take a haircut, man.
Keep the hair. Keep the hair. Hey.
Oh, yeah,
it's all about the hair, buddy. All right. Let's get back on track here. We're going absolutely bananas at this point. It's late. It is late. The one other point that I wanted to make actually about the McCabe, and then we can move on and we can get to the Lill Green situation. I do believe, like, yes, it's 5 years, but I think the style that McCabe plays, like, I think that he'll age decent, like gracefully, I guess. Because I saw a lot of people saying, like, oh, TJ Brody looked good at 31, but then it was a quick fall off a cliff. And, by the time he was 32, 33, he didn't look so hot. Like, what if that happens to McCabe? Like, he'll be 32, I think, when the contract kicks in, right? Like, what if a year in, he turns into a pumpkin like we saw with Brody? I don't think that's going to necessarily happen, because if you look at the way that those two played, like Brody, he fell off because his game was like skating and IQ. But when the boots fell off, he wasn't really able to get himself into the positions that he was able to get him to, which made him effective defensively. Wasn't the biggest guy, wasn't the strongest guy, but he was always had really good speed and he made quick decisions. But when he lost that speed, that closed that gap, and just he was never really able to recover. McCabe's physicality will always translate, right? Should translate later in his career, right? His propensity to be physical, his propensity to, take hits, make hits, block shots, just be a complete lumberjack in front of the net. That's always going to be around, right? So I think that much like Chris Tanev, right? Like Tanev's 35 years old right now, still looks great at 35 years old. So I do believe that McCabe, just the way that he plays, should age more gracefully than a guy like TJ Brody, who was a defensive defenseman, but wasn't a physical one. It's more of like a skilled defensive defenseman, if that makes sense. relied on his speed and his skating and his IQ. Not necessarily the case with McCabe. So I think that he'll be okay moving forward. I don't know if you feel any differently, but that was just I just saw a lot of people talking about that and it falling off, and I'm like, I don't know if it will in comparison to Brody's fall off. I think McCabe's
No,
game will translate longer into his career.
and we see physical defense and more capable of playing later in their career because when you play a physical style, yeah, it does wear on players. I get that, but it also you know it's one of those styles that we see players play with for quite a long time in their career, right? Even as they age, because the skating might not be there, but the fact that you're able to close off on players, be punishing, stay in on them, and the Leafs are going to find guys eventually that will help a player like McCabe that can have partners that could skate a bit and help in those areas too. But positioning, I think, means even more for defensemen, right?
Mhm.
And players will adapt to their play as well.
Speaking of players and defensive positioning and someone who doesn't do that very well and has had a good position nestled up in the press box for 9 of the first 10 games of the Leafs season here, Timothy Lill Green. Because now that they've got McCabe locked in long term, right? You've got McCabe locked into his deal for the next 5 years. Tanev's got 5 years left on his deal. Rielly's probably got 5 more years left on his deal too. Five-ish, 5 or 6 years probably. And then OEL's got 3 more after this. Like, you've got your core locked in. There's no chance that you could possibly look at Timothy Liljegren and say, all right, this guy's going to be part of the future. He ain't. And it's not really because the core is locked in, but it's because they look at him as like their 9th defenseman right now behind Connor Timmins, behind apparently Phil Myers, and Yanni Hakanpää is getting healthy. And that $3 million sitting up in the press box, they now need that money because, and not just this year, next year too, when that McCabe contract gets extended, they desperately need that money now. That's got to be the next order of business for Brad Treliving. Has to, mandatory, has to find a way to get out of this Liljegren contract. Has to happen.
Yeah, it's like if we've been, it's been kind of, it's gotten to the point now where I get concerned if I haven't heard anything because you're backing yourself into a little bit of a corner by having Liljegren there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, just when this team was getting past their cap issues, this one has just really thrown a wrench into everything. And it really is unfortunate because I thought, yeah, okay, David Kampf is getting paid more than he should, but they're able to manage that. The Timothy Liljegren one, okay, maybe if he was actually playing every day, you could kind of stomach it. But the fact that he's not playing at all, or he's only played one game, it just is just like this team can't afford to have that much money sitting.
No.
It just can't. And like but as you said, it reinforces the fact that going forward, it's not going to be able. They're not going to be able to have that sustained like this.
No. And it'll be interesting to see how Brad Treliving gets creative because I am of the belief that Liljegren, I think he's got negative trade value right now. Personally, I honestly believe that they're going to have to attach something to get a team to take on that contract. Because again, that's $3 million this year and $3 million next year. So that's a lot of money that a team's going to have to pay Liljegren, like physical money and valuable cap space, for a guy who right now the Maple Leafs don't believe is even worthy of playing on a nightly basis. Like, it isn't worthy of playing over a guy like Timmins, over a guy like Myers. And again, Hakanpää is going to come back. He's going to continue to tumble down the depth chart. So yeah, for both parties, a change of scenery is absolutely needed. And unfortunately, I think it's going to cost the Maple Leafs some sort of asset to get someone to take on that deal, which is ludicrous that they sign him to a multi-year deal, 2 years, give him $3 million a year. He plays one game on that contract and you have to attach something to get out of it. Like, that one game, is that really worth it? Like, whether it's a third, fourth round pick or a B-level prospect, is that really, really worth it? Anyways, I've got a list of teams. I know you went through and you had an article last week on sportsnet.ca. You can go check that out. And you had a few teams on your list that you thought would be good trade options. I went through, I dug up a few teams that I believe would be good options for a Timothy Lill Green trade potentially, but we're running out of time. So I think we're going to kick that down the curb to tomorrow. So tomorrow, because we got a couple days off in between the next game. Was the next game Thursday against the Kraken? So a couple off days here that we can kind of dig into this. So why don't we kind of put a pause on this conversation? We can pick up where we left off tomorrow, and I'll give you those 3 teams that I think could be possible trade destinations for Timothy Lill Green. He's got to go somewhere. That's for sure, because he's not making his way into this lineup anytime soon. That was made loud and clear over the past week as he continued to sit as other guys have leapfrogged him on the depth chart. All right, Dave, anything else you want to get into really quickly, or anything? Any comments, questions, concerns before we get
I
out
will
of here?
say, I didn't get to say it in the 3 stars. Morgan Rielly really liked this game the last few days. Getting on the score sheet 2 days in a row. That's what I like to see from Mo.
Did we not do a 3rd star?
I didn't do mine.
Oh, I don't know. My head. I don't know where my head was
It's
at
okay.
today. Jeez Louise.
Morgan
Okay.
Rielly doesn't need my approval to say that he's been playing well. He knows he has been.
He's played well for sure. But I mean, again, put in much more favorable situations, right? If it's him and OEL together, they've got those offensive zone faceoffs. I'll play the same game with you as that we played with Tanev, right? So let's look at the same game for Morgan Rielly. Let me see what that number would be. And then we can get out of here. So he had 17 shifts where he started out taking zone faceoffs. How many of them do you think was in the offensive zone compared to the defensive zone?
Maybe like 10.
7-1.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I guess I have to figure in the neutral zone into that one as well.
Yeah. So like the offensive zone faceoff percentage was 87.5.
Yeah. Okay.
For O zone compared to D zone. Then he also had 9 neutral zone faceoffs. But yeah, 7-1 offensive zone faceoffs to defensive zone faceoffs. So, he's starting off in the O zone, and when they're winning faceoff draws like they did tonight, it's a chance to cook in the offensive end. So, they were able to really do well. I think 11-6 were the scoring chances when they were on the ice. They outscored the opposition 3-0 while on the ice. 71% expected goals with Rielly and Ekman-Larsson. So they look good tonight for sure. So yes, we should give a shout out to Mo. All right. Now that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and subscribing to the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast if you haven't already on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morisuti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.